All right, so what could a potential AI apocalypse, printable electronics, a new cancer drug, and a piece of digital art, what could they all possibly have in common? Well, it turns out a lot more than you might think. Today, we're going to connect these four seemingly random stories to uncover one single, really powerful narrative about where we're headed with technology.
So let's just dive right in with this. This is a pretty stark warning from Jared Kaplan, who's the chief scientist over at the AI company Anthropic. He says, it sounds like a kind of scary process. You don't know where you end up. I mean, that one sentence right there, it just perfectly captures one of the biggest, maybe the biggest challenge we're facing right now.
All right, so this brings us to our first big topic, the ultimate risk. What is this huge decision that's apparently looming just over the horizon? Let's get into it.
Okay, so according to Kaplan, the clock is seriously ticking on this. He's warning that we have this incredibly narrow window. It could open as soon as 2027 to figure out what we're going to do about self-improving AI. And the deadline for that choice? It could be 2030. I mean, that is just a few years away. That is not science fiction. That's practically tomorrow.
And this is the real heart of the risk. It's something called an intelligence explosion. So just imagine an AI that gets a little bit smarter. And then it uses that new intelligence to make itself even smarter. And then that smarter version makes itself smarter still. You see where this is going? It's a runaway feedback loop. And that's exactly what Kaplan was getting at when he said, we just have no idea where that process ends up. So here's the real dilemma, right? It's like a two-sided coin. This isn't just about some sci-fi doomsday scenario. On one side, you've got a technology that could cure diseases, maybe even solve climate change, and just unlock so much human potential. But all of that incredible promise, it's balanced against this profound, and yes, some people would definitely say, existential risk.
And this all kind of forces us to ask a really big question, not just about AI, but about progress itself. Is this just the way it is? Are we always going to be in this race against the unintended consequences of our own brilliant inventions?
Okay, so while AI is making us think about these huge, kind of scary future questions, other technologies are actually giving us real answers to problems we have right now. And some of these rewards are pretty unexpected. Let's take a look.
So, over in Dublin, scientists have just made this huge breakthrough in printable electronics, and the potential here is just staggering. Seriously, imagine having health sensors literally woven into the fabric of your clothes, or smart labels on your food that tell you exactly when it's going to spoil. All of it printed as easily as a newspaper. This is one of those things that could genuinely change, well, pretty much everything.
But what's really fascinating is how they figured this out. See, for years, trying to make these nano inks was basically just trial and error, a guessing game. But they finally cracked the code. They figured out it all comes down to a property called in-plane stiffness, which is just a fancy way of saying how stiff a material is on a 2D plane. Once they understood that, bam! They could predict which materials would work. They literally turned a guessing game into a repeatable science. So cool.
Meanwhile, in a totally different lab, you've got researchers looking at a new cancer drug. And they just kind of stumbled onto something amazing. They found out the drug messes with this really fundamental biological switch called the TOR pathway. Now, you can basically think of this pathway as the master controller for growth and aging in, like, everything from simple yeast all the way up to us.
And here is where it gets really, really interesting. They found this clear trade-off in yeast. If you push for super fast growth, you get premature aging. Unchecked, rapid growth always comes with a cost. Does that sound familiar? Because it should. It's the exact same tension we were just talking about with AI. You have this incredible promise of an intelligence explosion versus the terrifying risk of losing all control.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's bring this whole conversation out of the far-off future and the high-tech lab and put it right into the palm of your hand. Because this whole promise and peril thing, it's something we're all living with every single day.
Listen to this quote from the artist collective Pan Generator. Endless scrolling induces a state of permanent craving in the mind. I mean, wow, that just hits home, doesn't it? This group, they create these amazing physical art pieces that make us face the hidden costs of our digital habits, the stuff we don't normally think about.
Okay, get this. They have this one piece called hash to ash. So you walk up, you take a selfie, and it pops up on a screen. Normal, right? But then, the image starts to melt. It distorts and drips away, and as it does, a machine next to it literally dispenses a little pile of physical ash. Your digital selfie, this thing you thought was permanent, is turned into literal dust right in front of you. It's really powerful.
And what that does is it just completely shatters our blind faith in digital permanence. We all upload our photos, our lives to the cloud, and we just kind of assume it's going to be there forever. But this artwork, it's a real wake-up call. It makes you ask, are we really sure all our data, our entire digital selves, are actually going to outlive us? All right, so how do we tie all of this together? We've talked about the massive risk of AI, the amazing promise of new materials, and the phones that we're basically glued to every single day. Let's connect the dots.
When you look at all these stories, you start to see the same basic tensions playing out over and over again. With AI, it's that battle between autonomy and control. With the new electronics, it's progress versus consequence. And in our own digital lives, it's that feeling of connection versus that constant craving, and the illusion of permanence versus the reality of fragility.
And so ultimately, this whole thing boils down to one single crucial question. That huge decision about AI coming up in 2030, that's not just for world leaders or tech CEOs. It's actually a reflection of the thousands of little choices we all make every single day with our technology. So as we design our future, we have to ask ourselves, what are we actually optimizing for? And maybe more importantly, what unseen costs are we willing to accept to get there?